AI never sleeps, and this week has been absolutely insane. This AI can generate extremely high-resolution images natively, and instead of images, we have another AI that can create 4K videos, and these are all free and open source. DeepSeek releases a banger that might change how we design future AI models. Google achieves a huge breakthrough in quantum computing, plus they released some super powerful updates for Google Earth AI. OpenAI launches their new web browser, ChatGPT Atlas, that plans to challenge Google Chrome. We have a new semantic 3D model editor, where you can just edit 3D models with a text prompt, and also a real-time open source video generator. Plus, we have not one, but two new open source video models that can generate long videos, which are actually consistent. We have some new and moderately creepy humanoid robot demos, and a lot more. So let's jump right in. First up, Tencent releases Hunyuan World Mirror. This has got to be the most flexible open source 3D world generator you can use right now. So here's how it works. You can input an image to use as a reference to create the 3D world, but you can also add in camera intrinsics or depth maps or even poses or any combination of the above. And it'll basically map all your controls together to generate your 3D world. But not only that, it can also generate the camera parameters, the depth maps, and the normal estimation. This is insanely powerful. Here are some image to 3D world examples. We can upload two photos like this, and it can basically create a 3D model of these two photos stitched together. Plus, notice the boxes over here, these are where it estimates the cameras were placed. Or you can upload 4 photos of this imaginary room, like this, and it can stitch them together. As you can see, here is its estimate of the camera positions where the 4 photos were taken, and here's the reconstruction of the room. Very cool. Or here's another example where we can take multiple zoomed shots of this room, each a bit closer to the table, and here's your result. Notice that for these examples, these are basically 3D point maps, so they're kind of like dots scattered across this 3D space, and there are some parts that are missing or disconnected, especially along the walls and the edges of these objects, and that's because it couldn't really detect any data from our input images. But in addition to point maps, like this diagram shows, this can also generate basically a complete 3D scene. So, for example, if you upload this image, here's your resulting 3D scene. Or here's another example. We can upload this tunnel photo again, and here's the fully reconstructed Gaussian scene. Or here's another example of this lighthouse. Notice the details are all there, including the windows and the fences and the American flag. This is very good quality. The awesome thing is, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've actually released the models on Hugging Face already. Plus, if you click on this GitHub repo and you scroll down a bit, here it contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. Notice that you do need a CUDA GPU to run this. However, over here, they didn't specify the minimum VRAM requirements for this. But if you look at the Hugging Face repo, the size of all the models are only 5 GB, so you should be able to run this using most consumer-grade GPUs. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, Ant Group releases another super useful tool this week. It's called HoloCine, and this allows you to generate entire multi-shot long videos just with the text prompt. You see, the problem with traditional video models is they can only generate isolated clips of only like 5 to 10 seconds at a time. But finally, this open source tool allows you to generate much longer videos, and they actually remain coherent. So here are some examples for your reference. First, notice here is how you would format the prompt. So we first have a global caption, which defines the overall scene of the entire video, and then you would denote each character with a number like this. So if you have multiple characters, then it's going to be character 1, character 2, etc. And then here you can specify that the scene contains 5 shots, and then you can list out each shot like this. So the first shot is a wide shot of the majestic sunrise over the ocean, character 1 as a small silhouette, and then the next shot is a medium shot of character 1 from the side as she looks out at the horizon, and then we cut to a close-up of her face, and then we cut to a close-up of her hand gripping a small weathered stone, and then we cut to a medium shot of her turning her head slightly and closing her eyes. And here's the result. Notice that everything looks super cinematic and it follows the prompt exactly, and the scene remains consistent, including the background, the colors, and the appearance of the character. Or here's another example for your reference. Here's the global caption, and then we have character 1, which is a scientist, and character 2, which is an android, learning to tend a garden of synthetic light-emitting plants. And then this scene contains 6 shots, as you can see over here. The first shot is a medium shot of the android gently touching the petal of a plant, and then it cuts to the scientist watching on a monitor, and then it cuts to the android tilting its head. Then we have a close-up of the gentle's metallic fingers as it prunes a leaf. Then we have a rack focus from the android's peaceful work to the scientist, who smiles, and then we have a final shot showing the glowing garden. And that's indeed what we get. This new AI is really good at actually following everything you specify in your prompt. Or here are some other examples for your reference. These are pretty long prompts, so if you want, you can replay these parts and read the prompts yourself to confirm that the video is actually generating each shot that was specified. And again, everything looks super consistent and seamless, as if it was indeed the same character and the same scene. Here are some other examples for your reference. Now notice that this HoloCine is mostly good at generating cinematic shots like this. It might not be as good with like high action shots or scenes that are physically challenging like gymnastics. The awesome thing is if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've released the models already. And then if you click on this GitHub repo, this contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. Notice that this is based off of WAN 2.2 14b, so this is the latest and best open source version of WAN. And down here, they give you some instructions on how you should format your prompt, like I showed you earlier. You need to include a global caption and then also shot captions, and then you can also include the number of frames. The default here is 10 seconds at 24 frames per second, but you can make this longer if you want. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is super powerful. It's called DyPE, and this is an open source AI that can finally generate super high resolution images natively. So here are some examples. I mean, if I zoom into this, notice the details of everything. This is super high, like 4K resolution. Or here's another example. If I zoom in, notice that you can even see the details of the dude's face and the grass and his fingers. I mean, this is insanely detailed. Here are some other examples. Let's zoom in on this image and note how detailed everything is. Even this building in the background, like everything is just very sharp and detailed. Or here's another example. Let's zoom in on her armor. Everything is just very sharp and detailed. Now, here's the thing. You could use an existing open source model like Flux and try to get it to generate a 4K image like this. But here's your result. However, after you plug in DyPE, then the result looks a lot better, as you can see here. I mean, this is truly a 4K image. Or here's another example. Here's the same prompt, but on the left is just using Flux. Notice that the details aren't great, but on the right is DyPE, and notice just how much more detailed everything is. Or here's another example. Notice that at such a high resolution, Flux often gets some parts wrong, like over here, but if you add DyPE, again, it just adds so much more detail into this photo. The awesome thing is, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've released the code to this already. So on this GitHub repo, here are all the instructions on how you can download and run this locally on your computer. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is really cool. It's called InPaint for Drag, and here's how it works. You would first start by painting over the areas of the image which you want to edit. And then it would automatically select or mask out these areas. And then step 2 is you would draw arrows that kind of control how you want to move these objects. And then afterwards, it's going to actually move these objects very roughly like this, but then use AI to stitch everything together seamlessly. And here is your final result. Here are some more examples. So you can select this wing and move the wing up a bit, and then the AI will stitch this together, and here's what you get. Or here's another example where we can select this panda and move it to the left a bit, and here's your result. Or here's another example where we can select this arm and move it up a bit, and the AI will stitch everything together seamlessly like this. So, this is kind of like Nano Banana, but instead of editing the image with a text prompt, you actually draw over the image and dictate how you want to move specific parts of the image. Anyways, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've actually released the code for this already. So if you click on this GitHub repo, this contains all the instructions on how to install this and run it on your computer. Plus, it looks like they've also released a collab demo for you to try this out online. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, we have a new open source video model that can potentially generate videos in real time. So this is called Krea Realtime 14B, and this is based off of Alibaba's WAN 2.1 14B, but they've added this new self-forcing technique. And here it says it can achieve text-to-video inference at a speed of 11 frames per second on a single NVIDIA B200. So I guess the caveat here is you still need a beast of a GPU in order to actually generate real-time videos. You're not going to be able to do real-time on a consumer GPU. However, that being said, you can still generate videos a lot faster with this new Krea Realtime model. Now, the awesome thing about Krea Realtime is you can do video to video. So for example, you can take this video on the left where it's just a very rough composition of how you want to place objects in the video, and then it can generate an entire race car scene of it on the right. Now, this doesn't have to be in real time, but if you can do this in real time, then this unlocks a ton of cool creative possibilities, where you can basically, just film yourself on your webcam, but then turn the output into a completely different video. Or here's another example where we can take the top video and plug it through this AI to generate a completely different car and scene. Here are some other examples of video to video where on the top is the original video, but you can change the characters like this. Now, before you get too excited, here's the thing. Here it says their model is over 10 times larger than existing real-time video models. In fact, if you click on this hugging face, notice that the total size of everything is almost 60 gigabytes in size. And that's why they mentioned that you need a B200 to actually run this in real time. So it doesn't look like this can be run on most consumer-grade devices, but I mean, if you're really interested in trying this out, you could rent a GPU cloud to set this up. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is super useful. So it's called UltraGen, and this allows you to generate high-resolution videos up to 4K. In fact, this is the first model that I'm aware of that allows you to generate native 4K videos. Here are some comparisons with the leading open source models out there, including Hunyuan Video and WAN, but as you can see, this new one by UltraGen is a bit more detailed, and that's because it can generate, 4K resolution. Especially notice the details of the mountains. I mean, the resolution is just a lot clearer and better. Here are some other comparisons for your reference. So here's a dramatic volcano eruption. Here is a coral reef. And then here's a river. Everything is just a lot more detailed. So here they compared the generation time of WAN and Hunyuan and this UltraGen if you try to generate videos at all these different resolutions. Notice that if you get WAN, which is like the leading open source model, to generate even a 1020p resolution video, it'll take 35 minutes, whereas for UltraGen, it requires less than half the time. And then if you try to get it to generate 4K, well, first of all, WAN doesn't really natively support 4K, so you get a super blurry image like this. Plus, it takes like almost 9 hours to generate this, whereas for UltraGen, it took less than 2 hours, and the result also looks amazing. Here are some other results for your reference. So the bottom row is this new UltraGen. Notice especially for this prompt, a snowy village at dusk, none of the other video generators could actually get the building details correct if you zoom into the buildings. However, notice how detailed the generation from UltraGen is. You can even make out the details of the windows. And then here are some quality benchmarks for your reference. Note that for both 1080p and 4K videos, UltraGen just beats the rest of the leading video models for most of these benchmarks. Really quickly, here's how it works. So UltraGen uses a special attention mechanism that breaks down the video into both global and local models. So the global model is in charge of generating the overall scene, but the local model is focused on the fine details. And if you mix both of them together, this creates both a consistent and detailed scene. Now, if you scroll up to the top of the page, it looks like they've released a technical paper and a GitHub repo, and then on this GitHub repo, it says the code will be released soon, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, we have a really cool AI video tool called Ditto, and this allows you to edit existing videos just with a text prompt. So for example, you can completely change the character or the background of the video like this. Or you can also easily insert objects into a video just with a text prompt, as you can see here. And one of the coolest features is they've also released a fine-tuned model which allows you to turn any anime scene into a realistic scene like this. Best of all, this is completely open source and you can use this right now. In fact, I already did a full installation tutorial this week on how you can set this up on your computer. And it's actually pretty small, so each model is only 6 GB in size, so you should be able to run this on most consumer grade GPUs. Anyways, I'm not going to repeat too much here. See this video if you want to check out Ditto further. Next up, this is a pretty cool 3D model editor. So this allows you to micro-edit existing 3D models just with a text prompt. So it's kind of like Nano Banana, but for 3D models. Here are some examples. On the left is the original model, and you can prompt it to make the backpack bigger, and on the right is your result. Notice that it keeps the rest of the character consistent. Or here's another example. We can replace the blue jacket with the brown down jacket, and here's what we get. You can also remove objects. So let's get it to remove the chimney, and here's your result. Or we can do the opposite and add a satellite dish on top of this house. Or we can get this dragon to hold a sword like this. Or we can remove the wings of this dragon. Basically, as you can see, it's able to add or remove things that you prompt it with without affecting the rest of the model. Really quickly, here's how it works. So it uses a combination of techniques, including Flow Edit, which is a 3D model editor, which I went over on my channel before, and it integrates this into Trellis, which is the 3D model generator. And this allows you to create local edits without even needing to apply a mask or basically select or draw over the area which you want to edit. It can automatically detect this just with your text prompt. Anyways, if you scroll up here, it looks like they are planning to release some demo or dataset and the code for this. Right now, if you click on this GitHub repo, it doesn't seem like they've released the code yet, but it looks like they are planning to release the dataset and a Gradio demo very soon. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, Google releases a super insightful AI system. It's called Vista, and this is basically an agentic system that is designed to improve video generations automatically. So here's how it works. It's basically an agentic loop like this, where it first takes the user's prompt, and then it generates multiple videos from that prompt, and then it goes through this criteria and multiple rounds, much like a competition, to basically select the best video from these generations. And then afterwards, it gets multiple AI agents to critique the videos further, and the user can also add feedback here on which videos they prefer. So for example, these specialized agents will analyze the videos like visual fidelity, motion, dynamics, etc., and also how good the audio is, and then how good the context is. And then afterwards, this feedback is then fed through this reasoning agent to rewrite and improve the original video prompt from the user. And then this prompt can also be fed back into this loop. So this cycle basically repeats, and for each loop, it analyzes the video, it critiques everything, and it gets this deep thinking agent to rewrite the prompt to improve it for the next generation. So in theory, this loop should generate a much better looking video than if the user just plugged in a text prompt without any further refinement. So here are some examples for your reference. Here's the original prompt. It's just a spaceship entering hyperdrive, which actually does not look bad already. But then after plugging it through Vista, here is the entire prompt that this agent has created, and here's the resulting video. And look at the visual effects of everything. It just looks way better, especially that tunnel effect at the end. Or here's another example where here is the original prompt. It's basically this block of ice slowly melting into this drink, which already looks pretty good. But then after plugging the prompt through Vista, here is the entire prompt that Vista has created. Notice how detailed this is, and here's the result. Let me know in the comments which one you prefer. Or here's another example. Here is the original prompt, and here's the video. It's already not bad, it does follow this prompt pretty well, but after plugging it through Vista, here's what we get. Notice the scene looks a lot more cinematic. It even has a nice camera orbit effect, and the dude does kind of seem more distressed. Or here's another example where we have a couple running through a sudden downpour, laughing and splashing in puddles.
Haha, let's go, let's go!
That generation was pretty bad. After plugging the prompt through Vista, here's what we get.
Yeah! Yeah, let's keep going!
Notice the scene is a lot more coherent, plus it just looks way better and more realistic. Or here's another example where we have an aerial view of this lush green forest. Let's play the original one first. Which honestly already looks pretty good, but here is Vista's generation. So it just looks way more cinematic with some nice extra camera motions, plus the colors and the sound are also a bit better than the original generation. Anyways, for now they've only released a technical paper on this, but if you're interested in reading further or checking out more examples, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Let me tell you about this awesome tool called ChatLLM by Abacus AI, the sponsor of this video. ChatLLM is an all-in-one platform for you to use the best AI models out there. You can seamlessly switch between different models, plus you can use the best image generators out there and the best video generators out there all in one integrated platform. Plus, if you're coding something, they have a really useful artifacts feature so that you can preview your generation side by side. Plus, they have a deep agent feature which can do really complex tasks all autonomously, like creating PowerPoints, websites, and research reports. It's gonna supercharge your productivity. You can access all these AI models and image and video generators and Deep Agent for only $10 a month. This is way cheaper than if you paid for each tool separately. Definitely check out ChatLLM that comes with Deep Agent in the description below. In other news, we have a new humanoid robot from Unitree Robotics. Now, in the past, they've released the G1, which has gotten a lot of attention. This is by far the most acrobatic and flexible robot out there. Well, this week, they've released something even crazier. It's called the Unitree H2, and here are some demo videos of it moving. I mean, look how flexible and natural its movements are. This looks even a bit more human-like than the Unitree G1. So here are some specs for your reference. This stands at approximately 180 centimeters and weighs around 70 kilograms. It has 31 degrees of freedom, including a waist with 3 degrees of freedom and a neck with 2 degrees of freedom. And it has really smooth and lifelike movements like dancing, and it can even do kung fu and ballet spins, as you can see here. The arms also have 7 degrees of freedom each for really dexterous manipulation. And they've also decided to add what they call a bionic human face to make it even more lifelike and relatable. But honestly, I think adding that face makes it pretty creepy. Let me know in the comments what you think. Now, in addition to the Unitree H2 with that creepy face, we have another robot face, this time called the Origin M1 by this Shanghai-based company called Ahead Form. Unfortunately, they've only created a male face. I would like to have a cute, catgirl face instead, but nevertheless, this is super realistic as you can see here. And that's the whole point of this. It's designed with ultra-realistic facial expressions, and it's equipped with up to 25 brushless micromotors beneath its synthetic skin to create some really subtle and lifelike movements like blinking and raising its eyebrows or tilting its head. And this Origin M1 also has some embedded cameras inside its eyes for gaze tracking and environmental perception. So, it can actually move its eyes around and look around just like a human. This system can recognize and understand speech and also respond in real time. In fact, it has real-time lip sync, so it can actually speak out its response back to you with its mouth. Again, honestly, I would prefer a cute catgirl face, but here's what we have right now. Alright, next up, we have another super useful video tool called Stable Video Infinity. Apparently, this can create infinite length videos with consistent scenes and smooth transitions. So here are some examples for your reference. At the bottom is the prompt, and on the right is Stable Video Infinity, and this clip is over 40 seconds long. If you compare this with the other two competitors, notice that the videos kind of deform and just completely mess up as soon as you start generating longer videos. But for Stable Video Infinity, the video remains consistent throughout this 40-second clip. Here's another example for your reference. So this clip is over 30 seconds long, and as you can see, only Stable Video Infinity was able to keep the video consistent and error-free across the entire generation. In fact, they claim that Stable Video Infinity is able to generate videos of up to 10 minutes long without losing quality. Here's another example for your reference. Here, this clip is again over 30 seconds long, and only Stable Video Infinity on the right was able to generate a consistent and error-free video without any errors. And here's another awesome thing. You can also plug audio into the system for it to lip sync. Now, if we start with the same input image of Obama talking, well, we already have tools like multi-talk, which can get him to talk, but notice that the face of Obama kind of changes over time, especially if you generate a super long video of him talking. But for Stable Video Infinity, Obama remains Obama, even though the video is over a minute long.
Far less. All of us take offense to anyone who reaps the rewards of living in America without taking on the responsibilities of living in America. And undocumented immigrants who desperately want to embrace those responsibilities see little option but to remain in the shadows or risk their families being torn apart.
And as you can see or hear, the lip sync is very good. And I mean, what the hell is going on with the video on the left? But I mean, there you have it. Here is finally a tool that can generate long videos, even with audio and lip sync. Anyways, there are a ton of examples on this page. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go over everything, but if you scroll up to the top of the page, they have released the code for this. And down here, they give you all the instructions on how to run this on your computer. Here, they did not specify the minimum VRAM requirements for this, but they did say that they used an A100 with 80 gigabytes. I don't suspect you need that much because this is only based off of WAN 2.1 14B, which can already be run on most consumer-grade GPUs. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, Google continues to drop some huge breakthroughs in AI. So this week, they've released this blog where they claim that their Willow quantum chip just demonstrated a huge breakthrough in quantum computing. So quantum computing is quite a complex subject, so let me first explain this to you in simple terms. You see, regular computers are just made of a ton of different light switches that either turn on or off, so it's either 0 or 1. But a quantum computer is like a dimmer switch where it's not just on or off, but it can also be everything in between. And this basically opens opens up a ton of possibilities. This allows us to have way more powerful compute. However, the challenge of designing a computer of continuous values instead of just 0 and 1 is that it makes them very sensitive and prone to errors. However, Google's Willow chip is this advanced quantum computer that actually works, and for the first time, it ran a complex quantum algorithm, and it did this way faster than classical supercomputers. In fact, it did this 13,000 times faster. So this really complex algorithm is what they call quantum echoes. And this works like sending a special signal into the quantum system and then reversing that signal and then measuring the echo that comes back. And this echo helps scientists understand, well, how disturbances spread in this quantum system. It's very precise and reliable because the results can be repeated and verified. So in simple terms, this new technique basically makes their calculation super precise. And you might be wondering, well, why should we care? What impact does this actually have? Well, because of this new precision, we can use this tool to study the universe way better. For example, it can be used to learn the structure of systems from molecules to magnets to black holes. And the ability to really precisely model molecules, I mean, these are basically some of the smallest components of our universe. If we can measure and understand how these work, well, this is fundamental to our understanding of chemistry, biology, and material science. So this can help us with new breakthroughs in, for example, biotechnology to solar energy to nuclear fusion. Anyways, it's quite a technical article, but this is a huge breakthrough. If you're interested in learning more, I'll link to this main announcement page in the description below. Now, in addition to Google's new quantum breakthrough, they've also updated Google Earth AI, which is also incredibly powerful. So Google Earth is basically a tool that allows you to look at many different layers and geospatial data of planet Earth. This is built on decades of Earth modeling data. But now, on top of that, if you add in the advanced reasoning abilities of Gemini, then, well, you can just ask an AI about anything on Earth, and it would automatically and autonomously help you, pull the correct information and answer your question or do an analysis for you. This is super important for tackling some global challenges like environmental monitoring or disaster response. This new framework called geospatial reasoning, which is powered by Gemini, can automatically link various Earth data models like weather or population or satellite imagery to answer any complex questions that the user may have, such as identifying vulnerable communities or areas that are at risk of disasters, or perhaps rainforests that are most at risk of deforestation or climate change. As you can see here, Google Earth's new AI features allow you to instantly find objects and patterns in satellite imagery. So instead of you having to swipe around the globe and zoom in and out to pinpoint the exact location, you can just prompt your query in this chatbot and it would automatically find the stuff for you. By now you might be wondering, well, how can I access this? Here they say that this will be available in the US in the coming weeks, whatever that means, and only to Google Earth professional and professional advanced users. So it's mostly targeted towards enterprises or research labs, people who are actually serious about, this geospatial research. And then also starting today, it seems like Google AI Pro and Ultra subscribers in the US can also access Gemini capabilities in Google Earth with higher limits. So they're just starting to roll this out, but I'm sure that in the near future, we are going to have AI-powered Google Earth and Google Maps. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main announcement page in the description below. Also this week, OpenAI just released ChatGPT Atlas. This is essentially a web browser that's powered by ChatGPT. So actually, it's kind of just a Chromium wrapper. In other words, it's a clone of Google Chrome, but they've just added a right side window where you can pull up ChatGPT and ask it questions. In fact, it's kind of very similar to Perplexity's Comet browser, which was released a few months ago, so there's nothing revolutionary here. But anyways, here are some examples of what it can do. For example, let's say you're on this web page. Well, you can pull up ChatGPT on this sidebar and then ask it about anything on this page. So for example, you can ask it, are there any good hikes nearby? And it will answer you. Or here are some other use cases for your reference. If you're buying a flight ticket, you can also ask questions about the airport like this. Or here's another really useful application. If you're writing something, like if you're replying to an email, well, you can just highlight any text and then there's going to be this ChatGPT button that pops up and you can ask it to refine the text further like this. However, notice that at least for me, I already have this on my Android phone where I can just hover over any text and then get Gemini to edit or rewrite the text for me. Or here's another cool feature. So this ChatGPT Atlas has something called browser memories, which is optional, so you don't have to turn this on, but if you do, ChatGPT basically remembers your browsing history and context. So if you later prompt it to open the Halloween decorations I was looking at last week in some new tabs, it can actually inspect your history and then open what you browsed in a new tab. They also have this agent mode, which lets ChatGPT basically do tasks autonomously on your browser, such as shopping. So for example, you can get it to purchase stuff on this site and it would autonomously add the items for you into your shopping cart and then check out. So those are the main capabilities of ChatGPT Atlas. Again, it's nothing revolutionary. Actually, we've already seen similar browsers before, like Perplexity Comet, or even like way back last year, I did another video on this simple Chrome extension, which basically does the same thing. It can automate my shopping, it can automatically write and reply to emails for me, and this was like 10 months ago, and it's just a Chrome extension. So if you want to learn more, definitely check out this video. Anyways, back to here, notice that ChatGPT Atlas is only available on Mac OS today for free and other users. And then here they say experiences for Windows, iOS, and Android are coming soon. Also note that agent mode, again, this is where you can get ChatGPT to autonomously do tasks for you. This is launching in preview only to Plus, Pro, and Business users. This is still an early experience, so expect it to make mistakes on complex workflows. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week, the whale DeepSeek continues to release some huge AI breakthroughs. This week, they published a paper on DeepSeek OCR, and this might trigger a paradigm shift in how AI models work. You see, for computers, they don't actually understand text like this. For computers, you need to feed it numbers. So traditional large language models, what they need to do is actually convert all this text into tokens, or basically numbers, to be fed through the AI model for training and inference. The problem is using these text tokens, especially for extremely long text, like if you want to feed it an entire novel, then it becomes very computationally expensive very quickly. Like the amount of compute to process long text just shoots up exponentially. So the solution here that DeepSeek proposed is, instead of converting all this text into, well, text tokens, what if we just like take a screenshot of like each page and send that through the AI model as an image? In other words, what if we converted all of this into visual tokens instead, and then just use like some optical recognition models to basically process the data? Now, this is a super technical scientific paper, but let me try to explain this in simple terms. Here is their proposed architecture. Basically, instead of inputting text, you would take a screenshot of whatever you want to input. So it's basically an image, and then it would break this down into chunks at a time like this. And then these chunks will be fed through this deep encoder component. This consists of this SAM, or segment anything model, and this is in charge of basically focusing on small local areas of the image to capture fine details. And then after capturing the fine details, the data is then downsampled, or basically compressed 16 times through this convolutional neural network. And then afterwards, we are left with these compressed vision tokens, which then get fed through this clip component, which is focused on understanding the context and relationships across the entire image. All right, so this is also called global attention. So again, SAM is focused on local attention, or capturing the fine details of the image, whereas clip is focused on global attention, or trying to understand the context and relationships between everything in the image. And then after this deep encoder component, the data is then fed through this very tiny DeepSeek 3 billion parameter model. This is a mixture of experts model with only 570 million active parameters, and this is basically used to decode these vision tokens back into text. So here they give you a pretty complicated table on their results, but here's the takeaway. Now with this OCR model, you can compress the text down into different ratios, and if you compress this with a 10x compression ratio, which basically means if you have like 1,000 text tokens, you would just convert it into 100 vision tokens. So it's 10 times fewer tokens. If you do that, then the model achieves very high decoding precision at around 97%. So it's nearly a 10 times lossless compression. And if you want to compress this further, so for example, if you want to compress it 20 times, going back to our example, if you have 1,000 text tokens, you can compress this down into just 50 vision tokens. Well, the precision can still approach 60%. Which is not great, but here it's kind of a trade-off between efficiency and accuracy. And here's the advantage of using this OCR instead of just breaking text down into text tokens. Because we are essentially taking a screenshot and plugging image data through the model, well, this can also learn to analyze tables and diagrams and charts and other non-text stuff. So in fact here, they've shown that DeepSeek OCR can indeed parse much more than just text. It can do images, charts, tables, chemical formulas, math formulas, and even geometric figures. Plus, this also has multilingual recognition for almost 100 languages. This is a very long and technical paper, but in a nutshell, that is what DeepSeek OCR does. I think this might trigger a shift in how we design our future AI models. Instead of using text tokens, maybe vision tokens might be the next big thing. Anyways, as before, the awesome team at DeepSeek has released everything already. So if you click on this GitHub repo, this contains all the instructions on how you can actually install and run DeepSeek OCR on your computer. So you can test it out yourself. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this new AI helps robots learn to move more safely and smoothly, just like humans. So it's called SoftMimic, and this basically takes a video of a human moving as the input, and it can apply this movement data to train these robots to mimic this movement while being safe and adaptable. So here's the thing, traditional motion tracking methods are pretty stiff. So when you train robots using these traditional methods, the movements are pretty awful, as you can see here. Like if you get this robot to spread out his arms, it's not really balancing very well. And if you get it to do the same thing next to this Lego tower, it ends up just breaking the tower. And then here again, if you try to get it to pick up this box in this simulation, it can't really do this well because the motion tracking data that it was trained on is very rigid and error prone. But here's how SoftMimic works. It takes this human motion data, but then it also adds this technique called inverse kinematic solver, which basically helps the robot learn to move in a more safe and compliant way. And this creates an improved dataset of all possible movements, and then this dataset is used to train these robots in a simulation using reinforcement learning techniques. So basically, the robot undergoes like tens of thousands of iterations of training using this data, and as I'll show you in a second, you can also actually control the stiffness of these movements, and then from that, these robots are able to adapt to new situations while being a lot more flexible and natural in their movements. So here's an example where you can control the stiffness. On the left, the stiffness is a lot lower, so this allows the robot to be moved around quite flexibly while maintaining balance. Notice how smooth its movements are, even if the dude tries to like drag it down. And then on the right, the stiffness is increased a lot more, so it's a lot harder to move the robot even when it's applied force. And so here is the benefit of training this robot with this new, more compliant dataset. If you try to get the robot to spread its arms out, now this robot won't actually break this Lego tower. And apparently it's also a lot better at picking up boxes even of different dimensions. So notice the different widths of these boxes, but the robot is able to handle all of these very well. Here are some other examples where you can get this robot to walk around while carrying objects or while facing some obstructions, but it's still able to handle all these scenarios very well. In fact, it's kind of cute how it kind of walks super cautiously like this, as if it's afraid to break anything. Here's another cool example where on the left, the stiffness is very high. So if you try to drag it down while it's pouring liquid, then it's very jittery. It's spilling the contents everywhere. Whereas on the right, if you decrease the stiffness, then even if you try to pull the robot down, it doesn't really affect the liquid pouring very much. Unfortunately, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've only released a technical paper for now. There's no indication whether they will release the code for this or not. But if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. And that sums up all the highlights in AI this week. Let me know in the comments what you think of all of this. Which piece of news was your favorite, and which tool are you most looking forward to trying out? As always, I will be on the lookout for the top AI news and tools to share with you. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Also, there's just so much happening in the world of AI every week. I can't possibly cover everything on my YouTube channel. So to really stay up to date with all that's going on in AI, be sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. The link to that will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.